Have you ever felt as though the world is a relentless storm, and you are a ship tossed upon its waves, at the mercy of every gust of wind, and every crashing breaker? Do you find your peace shattered by a careless word, your stability rocked by an unexpected misfortune, your very sense of self eroded by the chaos of external events? We live in an age of constant noise, of endless demands on our attention, of pressures that seem to mount with each passing day. We are told to be resilient, to be strong, but we are rarely shown how. We are handed shields made of glass and told to face a hailstorm. But what if there was another way? What if you could build something inside of you, a fortress so strong, so impregnable, that no external chaos could ever breach its walls? What if you could create a sanctuary of peace and power within your own mind, a place of refuge that you could retreat to at any moment, ensuring your tranquility remained untouched, no matter the circumstances? This is not a fantasy. This is the promise of one of history's greatest minds, the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. He called this fortress the Inner Citadel. For Marcus, who ruled the most powerful empire on earth, life was not a tranquil affair. He faced constant warfare, political betrayal, personal loss, and even a devastating plague. Yet, through it all, he maintained a sense of calm, purpose, and profound wisdom, which he chronicled in his private journal, known to us today as the Meditations. The secret to his unshakable strength was the daily, deliberate construction of his inner citadel. This was not a physical place, but a state of mind. A fortress built not of stone and mortar, but of principles, judgments, and self-awareness. At the very heart of this citadel is what the Stoics called the hegemonikon, or the guiding principle. Think of it as your true self, your core consciousness, the part of you that reasons, chooses, and judges. It is the philosopher king of your inner world, the commander of the fortress. Marcus understood a fundamental truth. External events, people, and circumstances have no inherent power to harm us. They cannot touch our soul, our guiding principle. They are simply raw data, neutral occurrences happening outside the citadel walls. The harm, the disturbance, the suffering we feel does not come from the events themselves, but from the judgments we make about them. The stories we tell ourselves inside our own minds. This is a revolutionary idea. It means that our emotional state is not a hostage to fortune. Our peace is not dependent on getting a promotion, on the approval of others, or on a life free of difficulty. Our freedom lies entirely within the citadel, in the power of our own guiding principle to interpret, to judge, and to assent. The world can rage, armies can march, fortunes can be lost, but the citadel remains untouched. Because its security is not derived from the outside world, it is self-sufficient. Marcus wrote to himself, "Remember that the governing self becomes invincible when it withdraws into itself and is satisfied with itself, doing nothing which it does not will to do." This is the ultimate form of power, not power over others, but power over oneself. It is the creation of an inner space of absolute freedom, an inviolable stronghold where your peace of mind is the supreme law. Building this citadel is not a passive act. It is a daily practice, a series of spiritual exercises designed to strengthen your guiding principle and fortify its walls. It requires vigilance, discipline, and a radical shift in perspective. It means learning to see the world not as a source of threats and rewards, but as a training ground for your character. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to reinforce a wall. Every insult becomes a test of your gatekeeper's judgment. Every misfortune becomes a chance to retreat into your fortress and realize that your true self is safe and unharmed. This journey we are about to embark on is a step-by-step guide to this construction. We will learn the ancient techniques, passed down from Marcus Aurelius and his Stoic teachers, to build our own inner citadel. We will lay the foundation, erect the walls, train the gatekeepers, and furnish the inner chambers with unshakable peace. The goal is not to become unfeeling or detached from the world. The goal is to engage with the world more effectively, more virtuously, from a position of unassailable strength. The citadel is not an escape from life. It is the command center from which you live it fully, freely, and on your own terms. The storm will always be there. But you will no longer be a ship tossed on the waves. You will be the lighthouse, rooted in the rock, shining your light, unperturbed. Before any great fortress can be built, its architect must first understand the terrain. They must know what is solid ground upon which they can build, and what is shifting sand, incapable of supporting a foundation. In the architecture of the soul, this survey of the terrain is the single most critical principle of Stoicism, the bedrock upon which the entire Inner Citadel rests. It is known as the Dichotomy of control. This principle, articulated with brilliant simplicity by the Stoic philosopher Epictetus, and practiced diligently by Marcus Aurelius, is the first and most formidable wall of your inner fortress. It is a simple idea, yet its implications are profound enough to revolutionize a life. The principle states that some things in life are within our control, and others are not. That is it. The entire universe of human experience can be sorted into these two distinct categories. What falls into the first category? The things within our control. The Stoics were very precise about this. It is a surprisingly short list. Our opinions, our judgments, our desires, our aversions, and, in a word, our own voluntary actions. These are the things internal to our own mind, the operations of our own will. Now, what falls into the second category? The things outside of our control, everything else. This includes our body, our health, our property, our reputation. What other people think of us, the actions of others, the past, the future, and the outcomes of our own actions. At first glance, this might seem like a pessimistic or limiting worldview. We control so little. But the Stoics saw this not as a limitation, but as the very key to liberation. The source of almost all human misery, they argued, comes from a fundamental error. We mistakenly believe we can control things that we cannot, and we neglect to exert control over the things that we can. Think about the anatomy of your own anxiety. When you worry, what are you worrying about? You worry about what someone will think of your presentation. You worry about getting sick. You worry about whether a potential partner will like you. You worry about the economy. You worry about the past, replaying mistakes. You worry about the future, imagining catastrophes. All of these are externals. They are outside the walls of your citadel, completely beyond your direct control. By investing your energy, your peace, and your identity in these things, you are essentially building your house on shifting sand. You are guaranteeing a life of frustration, anxiety, and helplessness, because you are trying to command an army that does not answer to you. The Stoic proposes a radical solution. Shift your entire focus, devote 100% of your energy to controlling the controllables, and cultivate a calm, detached acceptance of everything else. This is the first great wall of the Inner Citadel. It is a conscious, deliberate act of triage for your attention. When faced with any situation, the first question you must ask is this within my control, or outside of it? If it is outside your control, you must practice letting it go. This doesn't mean you become passive or fatalistic. You can't control whether it rains, but you can control whether you bring an umbrella. You can't control the outcome of a job interview, but you can control how diligently you prepare for it. You cannot control a rude comment from a coworker, but you have absolute power over how you choose to respond to it. Your power is not in manipulating the world, but in mastering your response to the world. This practice builds a formidable defense against the chaos of life. Insults lose their sting because another person's opinion is outside your control. Misfortune loses its power to crush you because outcomes are not up to you. The fear of the future dissipates because you are focused only on your actions in the present moment. By focusing exclusively on your own thoughts and actions, your inner world, you become the master of your own experience. You stop finding fault with others, you stop lamenting your circumstances, and you begin to cultivate a profound sense of inner peace and stability. This isn't just ancient philosophy. Modern psychological research confirms the power of this mindset. Studies have shown that people who focus on what they can control and let go of what they can't report significantly higher levels of well-being, life satisfaction, and positive emotions. They are building their own psychological fortress. So, this is your first task as the architect of your soul. Take up this principle as your primary tool. In every situation, big or small, practice this sacred division. Sort the world into two piles, my business and not my business. Pour your heart and soul into the first pile, and with serene indifference, let the second pile be. This is the first wall rising, strong and true. It is the foundation of your unshakable mind, with the first great wall of the inner citadel erected. The dichotomy of control, we have established the border between our kingdom and the outer world. We now understand what is ours to command and what is not. But a wall is useless without vigilant gatekeepers. Every moment of every day, the outside world sends messengers to the gates of our mind. These messengers are called fantasia by the Stoics, which we can translate as representations, impressions, or perceptions, are car cuts. You often traffic. Your boss gives you a critical look. You receive an unexpected bill. You feel a pang of physical pain. These are the raw, unfiltered data of experience arriving at your gates. And it is here, at the moment of perception, that the security of your entire citadel is either won or lost. The Stoics understood a profound psychological truth. It is not the things themselves that disturb us, but our representations of these things, the ideas we form about them in our minds. The event itself is neutral. It is a blank slate. It is our inner discourse, the story we immediately begin to tell ourselves about the event, that gives it its power to create suffering. Think of it this way. The event is the raw footage. Our perception is the editor, the narrator, and the musical score. When someone insults you, the event is merely sound waves vibrating in the air. But your mind instantly creates a narrative. That person disrespected me. They harmed my reputation. This is terrible. I have been wronged. It is this added narrative, this subjective layer of judgment, that causes the pain. The event itself, as Marcus Aurelius would say, stays still. It is we who go toward it with our judgments. The untrained mind is a terrible gatekeeper. It allows every messenger, every fantasia, to rush in unchallenged, bringing with it a whole host of disruptive characters. Fear, anger, anxiety, and despair. These are the enemy soldiers that our own perception has unwittingly escorted directly into the heart of our citadel. The Stoic, as the architect of their own mind, must train their perception to be a disciplined, discerning, and powerful gatekeeper. This is the second great spiritual exercise, the mastery of perception. The practice begins with a simple but radical habit. Every time a powerful representation appears before your mind, you must pause. You must stop it at the gate and challenge it. Epictetus advises us to say to the impression, "You are only a representation, and not at all what you appear to be." This simple phrase creates a crucial space between the stimulus and your response. It is a moment of mindfulness that breaks the automatic chain reaction of judgment and emotion. In that space, you can begin the work of the gatekeeper to strip the representation of its subjective emotional baggage and see it for what it truly is. The Stoics called this creating aphantasia, cataleptic, an objective representation. This means describing the event to yourself with the cold, detached precision of a physicist or a doctor. You are not a victim in a drama. You are a scientist, observing a phenomenon. For example, instead of "my boss humiliated me in the meeting," the objective representation is, "During the meeting, my boss spoke certain words in a certain tone of voice. My name was mentioned. Other people were present. That is all." You strip away the labels of humiliation, injustice, and attack. You are left with the bare facts. Marcus Aurelius practiced this relentlessly, reducing a lavish feast to the corpse of a fish, the corpse of a bird or a pig, and a fine purple robe to sheep's hair moistened in the blood of a shellfish. This may sound cynical, but its purpose is profound. It is a technique to break the spell of our emotional and cultural conditioning, to see things as they are, not as our fears or desires paint them. It demystifies the world and robs external events of their power to manipulate us. By suppressing the false value we attribute to things, we suppress the suffering that comes when those things are threatened or lost. If you suppress the inner discourse that says, "I have been harmed," the harm itself disappears. This is the work. It is the constant, vigilant training of your perception to act as a loyal guard. Challenge every impression, strip it of its drama, reduce it to its objective reality. Do not let your inner dialogue add anything to the raw data. This is how you secure the gates of your inner citadel. You stop allowing the enemy to be escorted in through the front door. You realize that the chaos is not in the world, but in your perception of it. And since your perception is within your control, you hold the key to your own unshakable peace. We have established the walls of our citadel with the dichotomy of control, and we have posted vigilant gatekeepers by mastering our perceptions. We now have a crucial space between an event and our response. But what happens in that space? What is the final step that determines whether peace is maintained or chaos ensues? This is the domain of the third great Stoic discipline, the discipline of assent, or synkatathesis in Greek. If perception is the gatekeeper who inspects the messengers, assent is the king who sits on the throne and gives the final command: enter or be gone. This is the ultimate expression of your power. It is the most crucial function of your guiding principle, it is the voluntary, deliberate act of agreeing with or rejecting a judgment about a perception. Nothing becomes true for you until you give your assent to it. Nothing has the power to disturb you until you consent to be disturbed. Let's break down this internal process. First, an external event occurs. This creates a fantasia, an impression in your mind. This impression is involuntary. You can't stop the sound of an insult from reaching your ears. Second, your mind, based on its conditioning, automatically produces a discourse or a judgment about that impression. For example, this is bad, I have been harmed. This is also largely automatic at first. But now comes the third and most critical step, the one that is entirely within your control: assent. You, the king in the citadel, the guiding principle, must decide whether to approve this judgment. You can look at the judgment "this is bad" and say, "Yes, I agree, this is true." Or, you can say, "No, this is merely an opinion, a product of my conditioning. I refuse to endorse it. The event is simply the event. I am not harmed." This power of assent is the final, impregnable wall of your freedom. As Marcus Aurelius reminds himself, things themselves cannot touch the soul. They have no access to it. They cannot produce our judgments. It is our guiding principle alone that is responsible for the peace or turmoil within. It modifies itself. It creates its own world by choosing which judgments to believe. The untrained mind gives assent carelessly. It is a weak king who believes every piece of gossip and every fearful rumor brought by his advisors. The slightest provocation, the smallest misfortune, and he immediately agrees. Yes, this is a catastrophe. He stamps his royal seal on the judgment, and in that moment, the judgment becomes his reality. Suffering is imprinted upon his mind as an internal truth. The Stoic, in contrast, trains their guiding principle to be a wise and discerning ruler. The discipline of assent is about subjecting every representation to rigorous criticism before granting it the power of your belief. The goal is to give assent only to objective representations. Thephantasia cataleptic, we spoke of earlier, those judgments that have been stripped of all subjective, emotional, and false values. You assent only to the facts. My mother has died. Assent. That is an objective fact. This is a terrible tragedy that has ruined my life. Withhold assent. That is a value judgment, and it is not necessarily true. It is an opinion, and you have the power to reject it. This is a lifetime's work, a constant practice of rectifying our inner discourse. It is about purifying your judgments so that nothing that is not truly yours, nothing but your own reasoned choices, can become attached to you. When you master this discipline, you build the very keep of the inner citadel. You realize that you are not your thoughts. You are the one who approves or disapproves of your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the one who assents to the judgments that create those emotions. This is the source of invulnerability. Sickness can attack your body, misfortune can take your wealth, people can slander your reputation. But they cannot force you to assent to the judgment that these things are evil. That power is yours alone. Your guiding principle, your freedom of choice, remains untouched, serene, and secure within its fortress. Marcus understood that this discipline embraces all the others. It is through the perpetual correction of what we say to ourselves, and what we choose to believe, that we truly become the masters of our own lives. This is not about suppressing emotions, it is about eliminating the false beliefs that give rise to destructive emotions in the first place. It is the path to true tranquility, a peace that comes not from a perfect life, but from a perfectly disciplined mind. Our inner citadel now has its walls, its gatekeepers, and its king. We have established the principles of control, perception, and assent. But a fortress, no matter how well designed, is only as strong as the materials it is built from. The very substance of the Stoic character, the bedrock of the citadel's foundation, and the marble of its towers, is virtue. For the Stoics, virtue, or ariat, is not a vague or pious notion. It is a practical skill, a form of expertise in the art of living. It is the sole good, the only thing necessary for a flourishing, happy, and meaningful life. Eudaimonia, everything else, health, wealth, reputation, even life itself, is secondary. A life built on virtue is a life that cannot be shaken. The Stoics, following Plato, identified 4 cardinal virtues that form the pillars of a good character. These are not separate qualities to be cultivated in isolation. They are 4 faces of a single, unified wisdom. They are so deeply interconnected that to have one is to have them all. These 4 pillars are wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. They are the load-bearing columns that give the inner citadel its unshakable integrity. The first pillar is wisdom, or frame. This is the chief virtue, the master architect of the good life. Practical wisdom is the ability to navigate the complex situations of life in the best possible way. It is the knowledge of what is truly good, what is truly bad, and what is indifferent. Wisdom is the virtue that powers the other Stoic disciplines we have discussed. It is the wisdom to distinguish what is in our control from what is not. It is the wisdom to see our impressions clearly and objectively. It is the wisdom to grant assent only to that which is true. It is the opposite of foolishness and ignorance, the ability to see the world as it is, without prejudice, and to make sound, rational judgments. The second pillar is courage, or andreia. This is not the absence of fear, but the strength to act righteously in the face of fear, pain, or danger. Courage is wisdom applied to situations of adversity. It is the mental and moral fortitude to do what is right, even when it is hard. It is the courage to face life's challenges without complaint, to speak the truth regardless of the consequences, to persevere in your principles when the world pushes against you. For Marcus Aurelius, this meant leading armies into battle, facing political plots, and enduring personal loss with dignity. For us, it may mean having a difficult conversation, standing up for a colleague, or facing a personal failure without despair. Courage is the pillar that ensures the citadel does not crumble under pressure. It is the confidence and endurance to live by your values, no matter the cost. The third pillar is justice, or Dichotomy. This is perhaps the most misunderstood of the Stoic virtues. It extends far beyond legal matters. Justice is the virtue of treating others with fairness, kindness, and respect, even when they have done wrong. It is wisdom applied to our social relationships. The Stoics believed in sympathia, the idea that all of humanity is part of a single, interconnected organism. We are all citizens of one great city, the cosmos. Therefore, what is good for the beehive is good for the bee. Justice means acting for the common good, recognizing our duty to our fellow human beings. It involves generosity, fairness, and goodwill. It is the understanding that we were born to work together. For Marcus, this was the highest virtue, the one that gave meaning to his role as emperor. Justice is the pillar that ensures the inner citadel is not a selfish retreat, but a center of positive action in the world. The final pillar is temperance, or this is the virtue of moderation, self-control, and discipline. It is wisdom applied to our desires and impulses. Temperance is the ability to master our appetites, to avoid excess, and to remain balanced and composed. It is the voluntary restraint that keeps us from being enslaved by pleasure, greed, or ambition. It is the discipline to act with calmness and reason, rather than being driven by rash, emotional reactions. Temperance is what allows us to say no to the extra drink, to walk away from a pointless argument, to be content with what is sufficient, rather than always craving more. It is the pillar that provides balance and stability to the entire structure, protecting us from the internal chaos of unchecked desire. Together, these four virtues form a complete and resilient system for a life of excellence. They are the substance of your fortress. To build your inner citadel is to practice these virtues daily, in every action, until they become the very fabric of your character. The walls of our citadel are rising, fortified by the pillars of virtue. We have learned to control our judgments and assent only to reason. But a fortress, however strong, can still be overwhelmed by a sudden, unexpected attack. The shock of a surprise assault can cause even the most disciplined defenders to panic. The Stoics, as masters of psychological warfare, knew this well. And so, they developed a powerful, counterintuitive exercise to eliminate the element of surprise and to steel the mind against the inevitable blows of fortune. This practice is called premeditatio malorum, which translates to the premeditation of evils. It is the deliberate, disciplined practice of imagining things that could go wrong. This is not the same as anxious, uncontrolled worrying. Worry is a prison. Premeditation is a training ground. Worry is picturing failure and despairing. Premeditation is picturing failure and preparing. As the philosopher Seneca wrote, what is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster. This is a reason for ensuring that nothing ever takes us by surprise. The wise person projects their thoughts ahead, considers every possible eventuality, and rehearses for trouble before it arrives. This exercise acts as a kind of mental vaccine. By exposing yourself to a small, controlled dose of a potential misfortune in your mind, you inoculate yourself against the overwhelming shock and emotional turmoil if that misfortune were to actually occur. You are, in effect, stress testing your own soul. Marcus Aurelius began his day with this practice. He would tell himself, "Today I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness." He was not being pessimistic, he was being realistic. As the Emperor of Rome, he knew these challenges were not just possible, but probable. By anticipating them, he prepared his mind to face them with calmness and resolve, rather than with shock and anger. He was fitting himself for defeat or victory, ready for any fate. How do we practice this? You can do it in the morning, as Marcus did, to prepare for the day. Think about your plans. What could go wrong? A flight could be delayed. A client could be difficult. A project could fail. A loved one could get sick. You can also use it before any specific, challenging event. Before a difficult conversation, imagine the other person reacting in the worst possible way. Before a major project, conduct what businesses call a pre-mortem. Imagine it has already failed, and work backwards to understand all the reasons why. The key is not to dwell on these negative images in a way that creates anxiety. The purpose is twofold. First, it is practical. By anticipating problems, you can often take steps to prevent them or to create contingency plans. You plot a way back before you are ever driven off course. You pack a spare tire because you have contemplated the possibility of a flat second, and more importantly, it is psychological. It hardens your resolve and preserves your tranquility. When you have already rehearsed a disaster in your mind, its actual arrival is less of a shock. You have already walked that path in your imagination. You have already considered how you would respond with virtue and reason. The event loses its terrifying novelty. You might still feel the sting of loss or the frustration of a setback, but you are less likely to be emotionally hijacked, to be thrown into a panic, or to feel that the world is ending. You knew this could happen. You are prepared. This practice also has a beautiful side effect. It fosters immense gratitude. When you regularly contemplate the potential loss of the things you cherish, your health, your relationships, your possessions, you stop taking them for granted. Every day that the disaster does not strike becomes a gift. Every moment of peace and health is seen not as a given, but as a precious bonus. You appreciate what you have so much more, because you are acutely aware that it is impermanent. Premet Malorum is not about expecting the worst in a spirit of doom. It is about having the self-confident optimism to know that you are ready for whatever life throws at you. It is the training that makes the walls of your inner citadel not just strong, but resilient and battle-tested, ready to withstand any siege with grace and fortitude. Our inner citadel is now strong, its walls tested, its pillars firm. We have built a formidable defense against the specific troubles of our daily lives. But the Stoics knew that to achieve true unshakable tranquility, we must sometimes do more than defend. We must transcend. We must learn to see our lives, not from the ground level, amidst the smoke and chaos of the battlefield, but from a higher vantage point. This is the purpose of one of the most sublime and perspective-altering spiritual exercises in all of philosophy, the view from above. This is not just a defense. It is a recontextualization of your entire existence. It is the practice of mentally ascending, rising above your own life, your city, your country, and even the planet itself, to view everything from the vast, silent, cosmic heights. The purpose of this exercise, which Marcus Aurelius practiced constantly, is to see your own life, with all its anxieties, ambitions, and dramas, in its proper proportion against the backdrop of infinite space and time. From this vantage point, the things that seem so monumental and all-consuming on the ground shrink to their true insignificant size. The practice is a guided meditation, a journey of the mind. You begin by picturing yourself, right now, as if seen from the outside. Then, you begin to float upwards. You see the room you are in, then the entire building. You rise higher, seeing your neighborhood, the daily lives unfolding like a silent movie below, people rushing to work, walking their dogs, living out their own intricate stories. You continue to ascend, your perspective widening. You see your entire city, a complex tapestry of millions of threads, each thread a human life with its own hopes and fears. You float higher still, into the clouds, seeing your country, then the continent, a patchwork of mountains, rivers, and coastlines. Finally, you rise above the atmosphere itself, into the silent, velvet blackness of space. You look back and see it. The planet Earth, a beautiful, fragile, blue and white marble, suspended in the void. You see all 7 billion people, a swarm of ants on what Marcus called a tiny clod of the whole Earth. From this cosmic perch, you are invited to contemplate. Think of all the people who have lived and died before you, the empires that have risen and fallen, the countless generations that have been born, have struggled, and have vanished into oblivion. Think of the sheer immensity of the universe around you, our sun, just one of countless billions of stars in our galaxy, which itself is just one of countless billions of galaxies in the observable universe. Contemplate the abyss of time, stretching back to a cosmic explosion billions of years ago and forward into a future you cannot possibly imagine. Now, in this vast context of cosmic space and time, where is that argument you had yesterday? Where is that promotion you are so worried about? Where is that insult that stung you so deeply? They vanish. They become less than a speck of dust, a meaningless ripple in an infinite ocean. The dramas of your life lose their grip. The ego, with its pride and its grievances, dissolves in the face of this immensity. This exercise is not meant to make you feel insignificant in a nihilistic way. Its purpose is the opposite. It is to cultivate what the Stoics called magnanimity, or greatness of soul. By seeing yourself as a tiny but integral part of this vast interconnected cosmos, you connect with the whole of existence. You realize that your life is a brief, privileged participation in a magnificent cosmic dance. It fosters a profound sense of empathy, as you see all of humanity sharing this tiny rock, all subject to the same fundamental realities. It purifies the mind, as Marcus said, washing away the mire of our earthly life. This is the view from the highest tower of your inner citadel. When you feel overwhelmed by your problems, when your ego feels bruised, when your anxieties seem insurmountable, practice this ascent. Rise above it all. See your life from the perspective of the stars. In that silent, expansive view, you will find not insignificance, but a deep and profound peace. You will understand that your true task is not to fret over your tiny part, but to play it with virtue, in harmony with the grand, cosmic design. We have built our fortress, and we have learned to gain perspective from its highest tower. We are defended, we are resilient. But Stoicism asks us to take one final, audacious step. It is not enough to merely bear what happens. It is not enough to endure it. It is not even enough to accept it. The final evolution of the Stoic mind, the ultimate formula for human greatness, is to love it. This is the principle of Amor Fati, a Latin phrase, famously championed by the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, but with roots deep in Stoic thought, that translates to a love of one's fate. It is the practice of embracing everything that life throws at you, the good and the bad, the joyful and the painful, the calm and the chaos, not just as necessary, but as desirable. It is the conscious decision to want nothing to be different, not in the past, not in the future, not for all eternity. This is perhaps the most challenging and most liberating idea in all of Stoicism. It is the capstone of the inner citadel, transforming it from a defensive fortress into a joyful palace. Marcus Aurelius captured the essence of this mindset perfectly when he wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. The ordinary mind is like a small candle, extinguished by the slightest wind or rain. The mind trained in Amor Fati is a raging bonfire. It does not discriminate. Throw in sweet-smelling pine, it creates a beautiful flame. Throw in a wet, rotten log, it sputters for a moment, then consumes it, turning it into more heat, more light, more fire. Obstacles, setbacks, and misfortunes are not seen as impediments to the fire. They are its fuel. They are what make it grow stronger." This is the attitude we must cultivate. When faced with a challenge, the default human response is resistance. This shouldn't be happening. This isn't fair. I want things to be different. This resistance is the source of our suffering. It is a war against reality, a war we can never win. Amor Fati is the declaration of peace. It is the surrender of this futile struggle. It is the profound recognition that whatever happens is necessary, woven into the fabric of the cosmos, and our task is to not just accept it, but to love it as a part of our own story. How does one practice such a radical idea? It begins with the understanding that every event, no matter how it appears in the moment, contains an opportunity. A lost job is an opportunity to reevaluate your path. A painful breakup is an opportunity for profound self-growth. A serious illness is an opportunity to cultivate courage and appreciate the present moment. As the author Robert Greene puts it, we must learn to accept the fact that all events occur for a reason, and that it is within your capacity to see this reason as positive. This is not blind optimism. It is a powerful act of creative will. You are not passively waiting for the good to appear. You are actively choosing to create it. You are the alchemist who turns lead into gold. The practice is to treat every moment as if you had chosen it. When something happens that is outside your control, you say to yourself, "This is what I've got. I will not waste a single second wishing it were different. I will embrace it. I will love it, and I will use it to become better." This transforms your relationship with life. You stop being a victim of circumstance and become a co-creator with fate. You find that the universe is no longer something to be feared, but something to be trusted. You learn to braid the black threads of suffering with the white threads of joy into a single, strong cord that is your life. This does not mean you will not feel pain or sadness. It means you see that pain and sadness as an inextricable part of a beautiful, profound, and meaningful whole. As Nietzsche wrote, you come to understand that you cannot have the sublime joy of a mountain peak without the arduous climb through the dark valleys. To love your fate is to love the entire journey. This is the ultimate expression of a free and powerful mind. It is the realization that no matter what happens on the outside, you have the power on the inside to meet it with a joyful and unconditional yes. This is the fire that burns brightly in the heart of the inner citadel, illuminating everything with its strength and warmth. Within the loving embrace of our fate, with our citadel strong and our perspective vast, there is one final, daily drill we must perform. It is a practice so powerful that the Stoics considered it the ultimate key to freedom, purpose, and virtue. It is the stark, simple, and unavoidable truth that gives clarity to everything else. This is the practice of Memento Mori, Latin phrase for, remember you must die. This is not a morbid or depressing obsession with death. To think so is to miss the point entirely. Memento Mori is a tool for life. It is the ultimate motivator, the great clarifier, the one fact that, when truly embraced, forces you to live properly. As Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, in what is perhaps the most powerful call to action ever penned. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. This is the daily drill for the resident of the inner citadel. It is the thought that cuts through all triviality, all procrastination, all fear. The ancient origins of this practice are telling. When a Roman general returned from a great victory, he would be paraded through the streets in a triumphal chariot, hailed as a hero, treated like a god, but standing behind him in the chariot was a slave, whose only job was to whisper repeatedly in his ear, Respes post te, haminem chi isim, memento mori, look behind you. Remember, you are a man. Remember, you must die. This was not to spoil the celebration. It was to ground the general in reality, to remind him that glory, power, and life itself are fleeting. It was to keep his ego in check and his priorities straight, even at the peak of his success. We may not have victory parades, but our egos run away with us all the same. We get lost in our ambitions, our grievances, our desires, and our distractions. We act as if we have all the time in the world. Memento Mori is the slave whispering in our ear. It is the reality check we so desperately need. The practice of reflecting on mortality is a tool to create priority and meaning. When you are acutely aware that your time is a finite and uncertain resource, you stop wasting it. You stop wasting it on pointless arguments, on scrolling through social media, on worrying about what others think of you, on pursuing fame or status that will vanish into oblivion. Death doesn't make life pointless, it makes it purposeful. It forces you to ask the most important question. Given that my time is limited, what truly matters? The answer, for the Stoic, is always the same: to live a life of virtue, to act with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, right here, right now. The thought of death is not a reason to despair. It is a reason to act. It is the ultimate cure for procrastination. As Seneca urged, we should balance life's books each day, putting the finishing touches on our life, as if it could end tonight. The one who does this is never short of time. How do we practice this? We can follow Seneca's advice and tell ourselves, upon waking, I may not sleep again, and upon going to bed, I may not wake up tomorrow. We can follow Epictetus, and, when we kiss a loved one goodbye, silently remind ourselves that they are mortal, which allows us to appreciate the moment. With a profound and poignant intensity, we can try the meditation of imagining ourselves in our grave, our body decomposing, and from that viewpoint, look back at our current problems. They shrink, they change, they lose their terrifying power. This practice is what gives the inner citadel its urgency. It reminds us that the fortress is not for some future battle, it is for the battle of today. We must be good now, we must be wise now, we must be courageous now, because now is the only time we are guaranteed to have. The fear of death, the Stoics realized, is not really a fear of the event itself. but the dread of arriving at the end of your life and realizing you haven't truly lived. Memento Mori is the antidote. It is the constant, invigorating reminder. Live. Live fully. Live virtuously. Live now. We have reached the final stage of our construction. We have laid the foundation with the dichotomy of control. We have raised the walls by mastering perception and assent. We have fortified the structure with the 4 pillars of virtue. We have battle-tested its resilience with the premeditation of evils, expanded its perspective with the view from above, fueled its inner fire with the love of fate, and given it purpose with the memory of our mortality. Our inner citadel is complete. It is strong, it is serene, it is impregnable. But now we must ask the most important question of all. What is it for? Is this unshakable fortress merely a private sanctuary, a personal bomb shelter where we can hide from the difficulties of life? Is the goal of all this work simply to achieve a state of untouchable personal peace? The Stoics, and Marcus Aurelius in particular, would give a resounding and definitive no. The inner citadel is not a retreat from the world, it is the command center from which we engage with the world virtuously and effectively. The ultimate purpose of building this inner strength is not for ourselves alone, but for the service of others. It is to become a better citizen of the cosmos. This is the culmination of all Stoic practice. The philosophy begins with the self, with the internal work of perfecting our own minds, but it does not end there. It flows outward. The Stoics believed that human beings are social animals by nature, designed to live and work together in harmony. We are all parts of a single, interconnected whole, what they called the cosmos or the universal city. As Marcus wrote, all parts of the universe are interwoven and tied together with a sacred bond. What harms one part of the body harms the whole body. What is bad for the hive is bad for the bee. Therefore, our personal peace and virtue are not the end goal. They are the necessary prerequisites for fulfilling our highest function, to act with justice, kindness, and for the common good of all humanity. The inner citadel gives you the stability to do this. An anxious, fearful, or angry person cannot act effectively for the good of others. Their actions are clouded by their own turmoil. They are too busy fighting their own inner demons to be of any real use to anyone else. But the person who has cultivated an inner citadel is different. They are free from the disturbances of passion and fear. They have a reservoir of calm and reason from which to draw. They can face the injustice, the foolishness, and the suffering of the world without losing their own balance. And from that place of strength, they can act. They can offer a helping hand, not out of a desire for praise, but because it is the right thing to do. They can speak the truth, not with anger, but with calm conviction. They can treat others with fairness and empathy, even those who have wronged them. Because they understand that people do wrong out of ignorance, not malice. They can be a source of stability and wisdom for their families, their communities, and the world. This is the final transformation. The fortress becomes a lighthouse. Its purpose is not just to be safe, but to shine a light for others who are lost in the storm. This is what it means to live in accordance with nature. It means recognizing your nature as a rational and social being, and then living up to it. It means using your reason to cultivate virtue within yourself, and then using that virtue to serve the human community. Your individual actions, guided by the wisdom of your citadel, become your contribution to the grand, cosmic order. You find your own happiness and fulfillment not in selfish pursuits, but in losing yourself in a cause greater than yourself. This was the life Marcus Aurelius strove to live. Every day, he built his citadel not so he could escape his duties as emperor, but so he could perform them better. He sought inner peace, not for his own comfort, but so he could be a just and benevolent ruler for his people. This is our final task. To see our inner citadel not as the end of the journey, but as the beginning. It is our training ground, our power source, our command post. From this unshakable center, we can go out into the world and play our part, however small, in the great human project. We can face the chaos of the world not with fear or anger, but with a calm mind, a courageous heart, and a hand extended to our fellow travelers. We have built the fortress within. Now, We open the gates and walk out into the world, not as soldiers, fearing an attack, but as citizens, ready to build, to help, and to serve. We have become the masters of our inner world, so that we may be the servants of the outer one.